Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's #1 do-it-yourself advocate show, Timeshare Solution or Surrender, with Irene, who has actually managed to listen to many people's stories and help them determine what is their best solution. Yeah, for some people, it might be just better ways to use their timeshare. For others, maybe it's analyzing the deceptive acts and helping them find strategic ways to get out of the timeshare that they're not happy with. I call it the horror tales of vacation. But everyone, help me welcome Irene Parker. We are celebrating our bicentennial show number 50.
Yes, it's amazing. Almost a year, and I'm going to call the people that were on a year prior and see if we can have them, because these are fluid situations and ongoing, and sometimes it can take a couple months, sometimes it can take a couple years.
Well, I want to point out today's show is something very special too. I know you've got, but today's show, we are actually going to be giving you some of those first tier steps that you need to do when you realize I might be a victim of deceptive acts. And because we point out a lot of things with real people's stories, but today's show is some of Irene's special secret sauce of what to do. And I want everyone to listen and pay attention because this might save you a lot of time and energy before you call us.
Well, thank you, Kim. And I'm going to introduce our first guest with that introduction, because I could sit here and lecture about how to compose a clear, concise report, but you need real life people willing to share their story. And we also have Anne. I persuaded her to be on for the third time. She was also on last week, because both of them are not happy with Hilton Grand Vacations, and did not send us a contact us with what happened with her resort, and sent us an email that said, "I wish I had found you before I found an exit company. I want to be a volunteer." So I think what we have in front of us here, Kim, is the start of a report support team sort of a thing. And we're going to look at today the before and after of Anne's report that was prepared by an exit company. We're not going to say their name because we reached out to them and are asking for a refund from them and explained why. Lori, in addition to sharing her Hilton experience, has taken it a step forward and written to a state representative. So the big news, a lot of people have been reaching out telling me the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is being all but dismantled, which happened in 2016 under the Trump administration. As we were talking before the show, there's two sides to every story. The proponents to that decision say it was overbroad and overreaching, but they did get back almost $20 billion to consumers. Probably the most well-known is Wells Fargo, where agents were creating bogus accounts just to win some kind of sales bonus. Okay, so before we start with today's guest, we had three people report that they resolved their dispute. And one person has 3 timeshares. She was on our show, Cindy, just 2 weeks ago, and she already is able to be released from one of them. Then we had someone that contacted us just, I'd say two, maybe not, yeah, 2 at the most 3 weeks ago. And he wanted exit from Westgate Resorts. And he said, I asked, did you pay 2025 maintenance fees? No, I don't want to pay 2025 maintenance fees. I said, you have to pay 2025 maintenance fees. There's no resort that will take a timeshare back if you're not current on maintenance fees. He had received a collection notice from Meridian collection agency. So he composed that he was willing to pay this. And what happened was his mother is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she had put years and years ago 2 kids, his wife and her brother, on the deed, which when they're grown are not happy about that. So that was, he paid $2,600, which is less than he would have paid an exit company. And Westgate doesn't negotiate with exit companies. Now, the other resolution, they were able to get a loan canceled. Okay, but they had what I consider a smoking gun, in that the closing agent said, now, first of all, she said, I'm laid off. I don't have any income right now. And he said, you have 30 days to cancel. The truth was 5 days. And then he said, if you want to cancel, call me. Do not text, do not email. Well, the procedure in your contract states that you must send a certified letter. He gave her a bag of documents after she signed, but it wasn't the contract. So they initially dismissed her, saying you needed to send a certified letter. But then she did get through an email. She emailed him anyway, and he wrote a fake cancellation number on a piece of paper. And so she reached out to us on January 21. So not even a month, right? And the resort agreed to cancel her loan. She was ecstatic. Now, I use that as an example to say why, based on following 3,000 outcomes, I felt that Lori and Ann, really the only option is to default or make the best of it based on the complaint. And so now this is my teaching moment, where this is, if someone calls, and Lori and Ann will be asking, we'll start with Hilton because they know something about Hilton, is that the first thing that I usually ask someone is, how did you first become involved with the resort? And, I asked, now, Ann bought 3 times. So she told me how that happened. And then you want to establish the chronology. So you upgraded a second time and a third time. And it's the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why. What did you buy? I bought a timeshare. No. What did you buy? Points, a week? Who did you buy it from? Do you know your sales agent's name? Where did you buy it? What state is extremely important? What sales center? When, the exact date, not, I think it was 2019. So people hardly ever have that information in front of them. Now, by the time we went through the chronology of Ann, I thought I knew what was going on, but it was so confusing, I really didn't until about a week later. So then the other thing we want to, I tell people, is to avoid inflammatory language. So many people start off, I was scammed by this person. I'm like, no. You have to support that statement. And also, I suggest never send anything to whom it may concern. I think that's a sure path to file 13. So at least try to get the name of a department. Okay, now after we have the chronology, we go back to and write the first paragraph. And so it's not unusual for somebody to want to get out of the whole deal. But Ann, could you explain how I convinced you, instead of trying to get all 3 contracts canceled, why I suggested you offer to keep the second contract and third?
The first contract, we just wanted to go to Hawaii, and it wasn't any particular day or time. It still was the first week of the year, but we just wanted to go to Hawaii. So, and we did go to Hawaii, but the second and third, yeah, we didn't get. We just kept getting, give me more money, give me more money.
Yes, but why? What was different? Maybe I still don't understand it. But when you were called over the phone to purchase, they were at that point. You had changed your reason for wanting the timeshare.
Correct. The The reason, yeah, we did. The second and third time we wanted to go to Maui during the first week of the year.
Only.
Only. No,
And
the only.
and who did you explain that to the person that called you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I've got that straight. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to I learned a new trick today recently on how to present, and so you might not be able to read it as well as I can read it, but what we have is in the beginning here. Let me get back to where we were. Okay. So we're going to start with the letter, just the first paragraph I'll read. We hope this is the letter the exit company charged you $14,000 for, right? And that we hope this letter finds you well. We are reaching out to formally request the termination of our current timeshare. Upon entering this contract, we were under the impression, based on the information provided, that we would have the ability to travel to Maui as part of our deal. Unfortunately, it became apparent that this option was not available, which was a deviation from our initial understanding. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me, because you were able to you were able to go to Maui, but you had to exchange. Is that correct?
Even exchanging, we couldn't get to Maui. But yeah, we couldn't get to Maui.
Okay. Okay, now let me go ahead and take us back here. And I'm going to now go to the next page where, okay, so they might have said here about some challenges you had. Okay, now this is the letter that you wrote after I asked you about 50 questions, right? And we are asking Hilton to cancel our two most recent purchases because there wasn't anything deceptive about the first purchase. So that's, it's not fair to ask to be removed from that contract just because you're not happy with the program. Okay, so we wanted to stay somewhere, and here we explain when I wrote for Jim Cramer, Investment News Service, The Street, I still hear my editor's voice in my ear saying, "Don't bury the lead." So what you want to do is you want your first paragraph to state why you're not happy and what you want to have happened. So here we explain we would be willing to keep the first purchase because we said we only wanted to stay in Hawaii. We didn't specify it was to stay only on the first week of Maui because of my birthday. We stopped making payments in June of 2024. Now, and then we go through the details of the first purchase, but then we go explain what you had said earlier about the second purchase. And then we detail the who, what, when, where, why of the second purchase. And here, the second paragraph here is it took from November 25th, 2022 to March 16th to complete the paperwork to be able to book. So this is one thing we're trying to reach out to a lawmaker. They're all lawyers, and they say you should have read the contract, where if you don't, this availability is not in the contract, and if you don't have access to the booking site, the cancellation period doesn't help you. So, and then we talk about the second time you upgraded, they said you just need more points. You just need more points. Now, this last paragraph is, I thought it was kind of bizarre that anybody would buy a timeshare that, and I asked Lori, I said, have you ever bought a timeshare before? Because some people just don't know how to use them. So let me remove that and explain, Lori, Ann, about how you owned Holiday Inn for a long time, right? And why that didn't seem like such a hard thing to do, to book the first week of the year.
Yes, because we could book holidays, vacation, we could book anytime, anywhere we wanted. We usually went to Texas and Arizona and never had a problem.
Which is
On our
not as high a
birthday.
demand area
Right, right. You're right.
at Maui. Now, the other question people ask, the most common, what happens if I stop making my loan payments? So, and we've talked about this last week, but you paid this exit company $14,000 in May, and you stopped making payments in October?
June was our
Oh,
last
in
payment.
June. Oh, okay. So basically now, what other services did the exit company provide? And what was the quality of those services that made you initially reach out to me to say you weren't happy with that?
Well, they would send us like the letter you mentioned, that first response was the letter that we were supposed to send to Hilton, and we did that. And then did not get a response, and then they said give it 30 days or whatever, and we'd write back and say, oh, we didn't get it, we didn't get anything, and didn't get a response. And then she will send, and anyway, it was a back and forth of many emails with a lot of misinformation. Sometimes it was my name was spelled wrong, or the punctuation, the information in general was wrong. So we would sit there and play around and change it and send it back. So um, it's almost like a generic letter that they just sent to everybody, so.
Well, and the problem is the letter that we compose, which we email, you don't necessarily need to snail mail it, is that we can't send that to Hilton.
Right.
And the reason is we would have to disclose that you paid an exit company, and that exit company would have to provide a full refund and say that 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 your relationship with them is terminated, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And now let's move on to see if I have anything here. More. Okay, I have a few things. We have a former sales agent on our board, and I asked her if she had a prospective buyer that said to her, okay, I'm only buying this timeshare because I want to stay on Maui the first week of the year. She would have replied that that's not realistic. You might be able to get it, but everybody kind of waits until the second that inventory opens up to book that, right? And so I just wanted to mention that. And then your credit score. How has your credit score been affected since you stopped making payments?
Dropped about a little over 100 points.
And is it being reported as a mortgage?
No, Experian has it as a timeshare.
Which is thanks to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, because they sent attorneys to argue on behalf of military plaintiffs that a timeshare stay is not a residential stay. And Westgate appealed that decision. It went to the 11th Circuit, and they upheld that decision. So you have the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals on your side saying it's not a mortgage. And Kim's sister Kelly works in lending, and she said that the first step is to challenge that it's being reported as a mortgage. In addition, Fannie Mae and the National Credit Union Administration also say it's an installment loan, it's not a mortgage, and it should not be reported as that. And have you been getting collection calls?
Nope.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual. Now, Lori is we're going to ask her, this is Kim's favorite topic. Okay, so Kim, Lori, she did an extensive research. I think she did about 80 examples of comparing. She didn't have, same thing, she didn't have access to the booking site, and she did an extensive study on when she could book cheaper online than using her Hilton points. So can you talk a little bit about that, Lori, about how did you, I don't think I even, well, before we start there, and what I was going to say, Kim, is your phrase value for consideration has never been more appropriate than right here. Now, this is what Lori said when she first reached out to us at TARDA. I would like a realistic picture of what the foreclosure process looks like. And I can say, I'm going to introduce you to Anne in California, and she can explain that, but she didn't say at this stage that you had paid off your, you financed it, but then used a credit card?
Well, I used a credit card to pay the full amount.
Okay, so you didn't finance at all. You just charged the whole thing. So some law firms will say that they will help you with the timeshare loan, but not the credit card. And that's because credit card companies are way more aggressive. I'm aware of someone not paying $4,400 and they received a subpoena in the mail. But as to, you're not concerned about your credit rating. So you're really talking about just defaulting on the maintenance fees.
Right.
Okay, but what was the amount what was the purchase price amount?
$19,800, I believe.
So, and you purchased when?
In 1998, in October of 24.
Okay, so if you default, it's like you've been robbed of $19,000. So
some maintenance fees, so about 22.
Okay, so then what I usually say to someone in your situation is there's a lot of people that are happy with Hilton. We have a Facebook group of people that are not happy with Hilton Diamond and Blue Green, who they've acquired. We have almost 10,000 on that Facebook group, but there's one with like 20,000 where people have been members for years and years. So why can't you, is it possible that you don't know how, and that's why I asked you, have you ever bought a timeshare before? And you said no. Is it possible that you could make the best of it?
Not really. I've tried multiple times to make myself happy with it, believe me. And that's why I did the research project I did. And what I came up with was the only value for me in the program is Hawaii. But I don't want to go to Hawaii every 2 years. And there's some value in Orlando where my home base is, but it depends on which week. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse if you book from Hilton.com versus the timeshare. Europe is what I really wanted and was assured that there was plenty of options there. There aren't. There's literally 2 resorts that I'm interested in, but one of them I can book cheaper outside the program. And the other one, I can book an Airbnb down the road for half the price, and I would be just as happy there. I told my salespeople that we are not typical resort vacationers, and that's not to knock anybody that is. That's just not me. I'm not a sit by the pool with my heels up kind of person. I tend to walk my shoes off urban explorer most of the time.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the only people that I enjoy myself more sitting in court listening to oral arguments about timeshare than I do sitting in a resort by the pool.
I've taken my days off to sit in a court. I have.
I'm happy to help out if I can.
I am
So,
in Mexico.
so the answer to what should I stop making my loan payments is that you should watch. I've been referring people to the wrong episode since August, Kim, because attorney Mike Finn has been on 3 times, but the first time he was on was May 11th, which is episode 6. And he talks about what the repercussions of that. And also episode 48 with our producer Nick, and that was a good episode. January 27th. Okay, then Lori's next statement when she first reached out to TARDA. Should I report now if I'm going to use the points? And I said, that's a very good question, because if you are complaining about availability and you want to get a few trips in before you approach them, then it's like, well, what's the problem? You just booked a couple of times. But on the other hand, I totally understand that you paid $19,000. You might as well get something out of it. But if what you're booking is less than what your maintenance fees are, that's not exactly accomplishing that. Now, I was offered a refund by Diamond in 2016. And we purchased more points in Virginia because they said they were adding New York properties. And I said, well, that's wonderful because our daughter lives there. That was the only reason I purchased. And then when I went to book, it would cost $10,000 using my points compared to $3,000 booked online. We're not talking a couple of $100. And I thought I must be doing something wrong. And they said, no, that's for people that have so many points, they don't know what to do with them. So I filed with the Arizona Attorney General. And the answer from Diamond's attorney was all the times I had used my points in the past. So see, Lori, they do use that against you. So then I filed with the Florida Attorney General after attending a disgusting presentation. That's when I got into this, when I thought, oh my gosh, this industry I love has gone to the dogs. And then I filed with the New York Attorney General, and that's when I was offered a refund. But to accept that refund, I would have had to sign a non-disclosure agreement stating that I would never say anything negative about the company. So it wasn't that much money to us. It was $16,000, was quite a bit, but not like some of the people that owe $80,000 or $120,000. But I felt something was really wrong. This whole process of writing a report and filing with regulatory agencies, media outreach, is based on CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocate for Children in Foster Care. So after I retired as a stockbroker, I became first a volunteer and then a supervisor, and I was trained to write court reports. So, as I say, there are writers and non-writers in the world. Anne said she's a non-writer, but she's willing to help to learn how to compose these reports, because some people, if I tell them to write out what happens, we never hear from them again. But even if you're not a writer and you can ask somebody asking for help those questions, how did you first become involved, give me the chronology, then you begin to understand what the problem is and what they should consider asking for. We're not lawyers. We can't give legal advice. We do not want anyone sending us their contracts. We don't review their contracts. We can't look for loopholes in contracts. And fortunately, we do have attorneys that donate their time if we have a quick legal question that we need to ask. So now, Lori, the next answering that is, I'm considering a trip to Maui in May. Is an owner's meeting something they require? That's a real pitfall that if you're an existing owner, they'll say, oh, it's not a sales presentation. That's what happened to me in 2015. 3 times I asked, will I be paired with a sales agent? 3 times. And no, we had a lot of complaints. So it's informational. Will I be paired with a sales agent? Only if you have questions in the last 15 minutes. So soon I had no questions. I told my husband, don't you dare raise your hand. Right afterwards, I got whisked and held hostage for 3 hours by this woman. I couldn't believe it. I wrote a fairy tale about it, and she led me to her den. So they didn't, okay, now, and here's where we
don't raise your hand and you're
exactly. Okay, so if the only time they require you attend a meeting is if you are on a promotion. Okay, so they always try to say it's mandatory when it's not. However, if you can attend that meeting in Hawaii, it is legal, I believe, to record without the other person knowing. Of course, it's not legal in Florida. We want to keep up that oral representation license to lie clause. Okay, now this was part of what you sent me in the original, and I thought, I do not understand a word of this. They didn't assign 2025 maintenance fees. I guess they were included in the purchase price. I will have $313 due in either bonus points or cash for 2026. I don't think I have time to exhaust all the points by 2026, so I guess I'll need to pay that. Maybe I can save some bonus points. Can you explain that paragraph to me?
That was probably a lot of me being confused about everything going on. So it was mid-December before I contacted you, and I'd been researching all this stuff in the meantime. I'm sorry, it took me about 3 weeks to find you, which was surprising, actually. But anyway, I had not been billed for 2025 maintenance fees. And I was under the impression from stuff I'd read in Tug that maintenance bills came out the 1st of December. I hadn't seen one. And then I had actually filled out a request, folio, whatever it is, website at Hilton asking for my money back. And somebody called, not my money back, but just to be out of the contract. And somebody called me and said, oh, no, they couldn't release me from the contract. And my maintenance fees were paid anyway. And I should at least try using the program. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't have maintenance fees for 2025, but I should have dues. That's the 313. There's club dues and there's maintenance fees. There's two separate bills.
And you have, I think, $1,165 every other year. But then the club dues, which is how you book, is every year.
Right.
If you can only book every other year, that doesn't seem exactly fair either.
Yeah. And then the bonus points was that I had left after I paid a $205 activation fee. I went ahead and used some bonus points to pay that because I'm like, I don't want to give these people any more money, like ever. And I've since used up all of the maintenance fees to reduce all of the bonus points to reduce my maintenance fees. So I don't have any left. Just the trip coming up is all I've got right now.
Okay, and this is all part of unraveling an initial.
That is interesting. You say that too. You can use your bonus points to pay your maintenance fees.
Right. It's a better value to use them for travel if you are going to travel with them. But I didn't want to keep this going any longer than I have to. I just wanted to use up what all I've got and get out. Stop bleeding right now.
Well, and this brings up something in my mind that we have actually resorted to get the developer to realize that these sales agents are very dishonest, some of them. So Diamond Resorts had a program called the 30/30 program or the 20/20 program, depending on if you were gold or platinum. And you could book 30% of your points. You could use 30% of your points to book a cruise at 30 cents a point. And then they would lie and add on, and you can pay your maintenance fees at 30 cents a point. Well, it was 4 cents a point. So if you had 50,000 points and a $10,000 maintenance fee bill, it would pay 2,000 of the maintenance fee, and you'd have no points left to travel. We must have had 100 of those complaints. So we started in 2016 a wall of shame. So we have, and I'm just so disappointed that 2 of these brokers are now with Marriott, and we got almost an identical complaint from a Marriott, where we may have, the record is 24 complaints that someone sent about from the same sales agent. So taking out the actual, identity, we summarize those. I think he's not in timeshare anymore, but recently there was one with 6 complaints. So we do a paragraph, 6 paragraphs summarizing complaints against that sales agent since 2017 when I started, 2016, 17 when I started following this. Okay, so now we've got into your every other year. We finalized that. And then on top of all this, you were not happy to hear about a special assessment.
Oh, yes.
And when did you receive that, and what was that about?
Saturday, just the day before yesterday, I got the special assessment letter about the structural integrity study that's being done on Tuscany Village due to Florida state law requiring it on all structures over 3 stories tall.
And so that is very common for Florida. I'm South Florida. We're all getting, I have a friend that got a $60,000 special assessment. So that's just kind of adding fuel to the fire. Now, are you do have a few trips scheduled. So you're going just one. And have you sent a written report to Hilton yet?
No, because like I said, I've got that one trip coming up. And if they called me up next week and said, okay, fine, you don't have to pay out of your contract, we're terminated, go our separate ways. Now I've got to buy lodging in Hawaii for 4 nights. So.
Well, what I think you should go ahead and send your report to Hilton and say that you just want to let them know that you feel like you've been robbed of $19,000 and there was nothing you could do reading the contract because you didn't have access to the booking site, and state why this doesn't work for you, and that you would be you can't roll it back because you only purchased one time. But after you go for your trip, then you're just going to eat the $19,000 and in default. Well, they have a transitions program, but it's been like a light switch where it's been paused and unpaused. In your situation, I think they'd be glad to get rid of you. So they may take it back. And then you have to wait 6 months before you apply for transitions anyway. So we'll see. I think it's probably best to go ahead and submit a report. So we'll talk about that some more. Now, I don't want to run out of time. I knew this was going to be a very full show. And another favorite topic of Kim's is lawmakers. And so I'm going to go back to my handout here, and let me get it so I can blow it up so I can read it. And we have the letter that Lori sent to a state representative. Okay, so, and I'm not trying to be like I'm some expert on this, because I wrote Kim and I, we wrote a similar letter for Elizabeth Warren, and someone with lobby experience ripped it to shreds. And so I'm just going to read the first paragraph here. I would be happy to share to Mr. Sessions. I would be happy to share specific information related to my unfortunate purchase of a timeshare with Hilton. The plan was sold to me for $19,000 plus closing costs, which amounted to $9.99. What I didn't know was the same package can be bought on the resale market for $1 from desperate people trying to get out. I didn't know at the time was maintenance fees would immediately rise 6%, and that the maintenance fees would cost more than renting. So anyway, this sounds more like what you would explain to Hilton when you send that. Now, I at the bottom of this page 9 of this handout for today's show, is I said that this is what I would omit from what I didn't know at the time is that maintenance fees would rise 6%. Now, I said, okay, you're not 18 years old, just graduated from high school. How did you get to the age you are without knowing that maintenance fees rise?
Well, from the sale to 3 months later, the first maintenance fee bill, to me, the size of the rise was really what I'm complaining about.
Okay, but 6% maybe, it's not like I think the maximum they can raise is, I forget, it was a law, well, I won't go there, but 6%, believe me, in Florida is not a big deal.
But it was just from October when I bought it to January when the first bill came. So,
well, this is the Surfside collapse kicking in.
Right, I had to look up what that was. So,
okay.
There's a reason for the structural integrity thing too, I think.
Yeah, that's because this Surfside collapsed and killed about 90 people. And so especially when we bought our condo, we were told to buy 4 stories or less. Because if it's 5 stories or more, there's more stringent requirements on these provisions. And a lot of people in Florida, seniors especially, are having a hard time coming up with the money for these HOA fees. But anyway, let's go then to the next omission is I have learned since realizing the mess I have got myself into, I'm like, no. You didn't, there's nothing you could have done because you didn't have access to the booking site and availability is not in the contract. They give you, a nice booklet or brochures with all these beautiful locations, but that doesn't include supply and demand. Okay, so, and a state representative isn't going to care that you could get more weeks. I was told that I could get more weeks than I can, but that kind of ties in. I was afraid I could book extra weeks for $259, but they're unappealing. Next one, I was told I could terminate, but that I cannot. Next one, I was told I would be able to rent my week. I was certainly not told that if I wanted to sell it, I would be unable to find a buyer. Now, this I think is valid because anybody that buys a timeshare, it is a structure. And so you talk about equity, as they often talk about equity at these sales presentations, and you're thinking it's like a house where, if you don't like it, you might take a hit on it, but there's some equity in it, as opposed to timeshares. One thing I'm concerned about is not having, the commissions are not disclosed. Because when you buy a house, the commission is listed there at 7%, whereas in a timeshare, that commission is 50 to 70%, which has a lot to do with the poor resale value. Now, one thing I forgot to talk about in your report, and the thing that has really set me off more than anything, is I had you speak with Judy Kozlowski, who is she knows more about Hilton than anybody on earth. She has been 30 years working resale for RE/MAX with Hilton Timeshares. She loves Hilton. She doesn't love so much, she gets some of the complaints that we get. But when you talk to her, Lori, what did she advise you as to being able to sell it to recover something?
She sent me a letter that said it would sell. Her recommended price was between $300 and $500. And then she had 2 commission structures. One was 15% or $1,500, whichever is greater. But if the selling price is $3,000 or less, the commission is a flat fee of $1,000.
Okay, now this is what has really set me off, is that the American Resort Development Association, the timeshare industry lobby, ARDA, not to be confused with, why are they Now, why are they referring you to a company like Timeshares only? Okay, so you went with Sell My Timeshare Now, which is identical almost. You know, they're a listing agent. What happened when you called Timeshares only?
I was looking for
I mean, sorry, Sell My Timeshare Now.
Lost my specific notes, but my recall is that they wanted $3,000 as a listing fee up front, and then there was like a $1,500 or $2,000 fee at the end, and I don't remember if that was a commission or closing fees or what that was. But I also looked at the website, which had, you know, multiple timeshares listed there for anywhere from $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 and up.
Well, and sometimes when people they don't owe loan payments, but they owe maintenance fees, we advise, and we had a guest on the show. Actually, next week we have our board member who has been assisting people with this, where Timeshare Users Group, the admin of TUG, has been on our show, and they have a site where you can list it for free. And then Red Week is a well-known, those are both for sale by owner. So when your only choice is to pay for something for the rest of your life that you're not going to use or default, then at least they'll say try to sell it. So if you list it on TUG or Red Week, this time next year, if you're decided to default, you can say, well, I attempted to sell it, but it didn't, it didn't sell. And we actually had another resolution. That's a fourth one. I forgot to mention this one. And they had contacted the resort, and they were told that that they had already signed up with their listing company to list it, and it didn't sell. So I referred her to that company, and they referred her right back to the resort and said they're the ones that make the decision, not the management company. So there you have it. She's going to have no choice. She's now back to square one. At least we know what's going on. And we have a Facebook group that was suggested about 6 months ago, where they are, it's people that have gotten refunds, loans canceled, are supporting those that are just starting the process. Kind of like Ann, you know, we have somebody that's just, I think we had you on last week with someone that's just missing their first payment, and you're able to at least say what happened since October. Now, before we run out of time, I want to go back to the outline here and talk about the report that I put together for this state representative. Now, not all states have a timeshare act. You know, Iowa, I just learned, has 2 timeshares, so they may not have a timeshare act. But Lori, did you check? And does Texas have a timeshare act?
Yes, Texas does.
Okay, and I think you mentioned it's been a while since it's been amended.
2015 was the last amendment I see.
Okay, so that was 10 years ago. It's about time they maybe consider another one. So, and Kim, I'm glad you're here with us, because we're going to do the same thing with Elizabeth Warren. In the cases, so we're starting off right, again, don't bury the lead. I would like to propose legislative changes related to the Texas Timeshare Act. In many cases, there is nothing to protect the consumer. Reading the contract and the state mandated contract rescission period offers no protection. Now, this is also, people will say in their contract, they did not tell me that I had 10 days to cancel. They're really not required to. If you buy a house or a car, chances are your car salesman isn't going to say, now, I want you to know in Florida, you have 10 days to cancel this contract. It's state mandated. So we want to make sure people don't say something that, you know, it's not accurate. Okay, so number one, what we're hoping to accomplish And we did speak with the lobbyist that advised us to set up our 501c4 in 2019. And he said that these requests he feels are the most reasonable he's ever asked of a lawmaker. So number one, the oral representation clause should be disclosed at or prior to the sales presentation, not buried in volumes of fine print. Were either of you aware that you had agreed that you did not rely on anything a sales agent said?
I don't think they told me that, but I know that is in most contracts. So,
right, they would never tell you now, don't believe anything I say. But it would be nice to know that you can't rely on anything that sales agent says before you go into that sales presentation. Now, I have a link to an article here that was written by a grown child that was advocating on behalf of her parents, and attorney Mike Finn, that said that timeshare, that oral representation clause is in a lot of contracts, but it's for a level playing field of two people doing the deal. In the case of Tiffany's parents, who she does the introduction for this article, her parents are on multiple medications, and they were held for 11 hours. Their quality assurance agent had spent 4 years in jail for burglary, some while occupied, 7 burglaries. And it was a whole other laundry list of traffic violations. He must have had 15, driving without a license. And so we want to justify that. Now, when you agree to a presentation and you get an email, or if you're at check-in, you get an appointment card, they would just have to put in the bottom, do not rely on oral representations to make my purchase. Now, attorney Mike Finn did not agree with this. On the show, episode 48, Kim, you were there. He said that what we should ask for is that after 2 years or 3 years, the developers should buy back if someone wants 50% of the sales price. And I thought there's no snowball chance in Hades that that's going to happen. But in Quebec, timeshare owners got together, got an attorney, and they were able to change in Quebec the law to where a timeshare is defined as a service contract with liberal reasons to cancel. So it can be done.
that's what I would agree with.
What?
That's what I would agree with, that you should be able to cancel it if you want to.
Yeah, well, their argument with that is the home that you live in, you can't go back to your developer and say, I don't like this home, I want you to take it back, it doesn't work for me.
Right.
Yeah, but you can sell it.
Exactly.
There's no value for consideration. There is absolutely no equitable value in a timeshare. Absolutely none, because they're allowed to resell and sell the units and outprice you. So there is no way that you can get out from it, that you can't resell it, you can't rent it out, you can't make money on it there, because you are constantly being undersold. And you can't, so there's no value. No value.
No, that's absolutely true. And then we've already talked about the contract rescission period and the stating that it should be a solicitation. Now, number 4 is not there, but I don't want to overload it. But in 2016 and 2017, over 1,000 Diamond members filed a complaint with the Arizona Attorney General. And I got a call from their PR firm in Beverly Hills. Irene, we're going to go beyond the AOD, assurance of discontinuance. We're going to record the sales session, the closing session. And I just said, what a perfect entrapment. So after that, there were many, many complaints of being coached what to say. Don't say anything about refinancing, because I worked in lending before and I still have contacts. So you don't say anything. Then you file a complaint, banks don't finance, and they say, if this was important to you, you should have brought it up on the recorded closing. So one of the proposals I think would be good, if the recorded closing is going to be used against the purchaser in the event of a dispute, the purchaser should be allowed to record the sales session. And now, Kim, you've talked about, the last thing I want to mention here, though, there are many military members under these loans that cannot afford to keep paying, and it is jeopardizing their security clearances. Now, I have, in the last 2 weeks, heard from 5 active duty service members. And there's nothing that, if there's one reason why I'm devoting now 50 hours a week to this volunteer ministry, timeshare ministry, it's because of the harm this is causing our military. So 5 lawsuits have been filed against, the first was Lewis versus Blue Green, Westgate versus Steins. If it wasn't for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau submitting 3 amicus briefs, 3 or 4, and sending an attorney to argue at those oral arguments at the appellate court. And then Holiday Inn was sued, Wyndham, and on November 29th, 2024, Hilton was sued. So it looks like, Kim, we're starting to run out of time. I got almost everything, I think, in. Now,
let's just recap real quick.
Yes.
Some of the first tier of what you need to do to prepare your story, especially when you come to Irene. You need to know
when you come to Lori and Ann.
Or Lori and I mean the team, when you come to the team, or the ministry. But we need to know who, what, where, when, why. Even how, and I want people to also consider, and it's something we don't bring up often, but we find out in questioning, many times they hold you hostage in that room, because I always ask, why didn't you leave? If you were there telling them over and over, like I was, I can't buy, I don't want to buy, I want to leave, why didn't you leave? Almost every single time that I have asked a person that question, they have either taken their military ID or their driver's license and a credit card, and they're holding it hostage.
Well, and Tim, in the most
they won't give it back.
In the most recent report, active duty military, he wanted to give them their driver's license, and they insisted on the military ID.
But then when he asked for it back and that he wanted to leave, they refused to give it to him.
What they do is they just say, okay, well, just a minute. I just need to get my supervisor in here.
Just a minute. So I think moving forward, if I were to change any laws in any cells, is no one is allowed to take any of your personal ID when going into any of these cells. I mean, you don't do that when you go look at a house. Here's my ID. I'm going to pull it up on my phone and you could take a picture of it. Because somebody asked me for my ID last week at one of the conventions. And I said, well, here, you can take a photo of my ID from my phone, but I'm not taking it out of my wallet.
I've had a car salesman keep my keys.
Yeah.
But that is a common problem that we're hearing with everyone, is that's how they hold you hostage. And even the one person threatened to call the police and they still wouldn't give him back his driver's license. Remember that story?
Well, and we have a recording of a 26-year-old who had traumatic brain injury from the military, and he recorded the second hour of a 5-hour recording where he repeatedly asked for it back. PTSD and TBI. It's not right.
So I think wrapping up, definitely contact us for help. We no longer have a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The FTC should be able to protect you, but their laws are based on our leader, and our leader owns timeshares, or he's invested in them. So don't look for sympathy there, but you can come here. Maybe we can help you.
And the next person that comes in, we're going to have Lori and Ann weigh in, and so I know we'll be seeing them on future shows as well.
That's right. Don't forget, every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Pod TV, we are talking about your rights, especially when it pertains to timeshares.
And thanks. I see Mark is behind the scenes. I want to thank Mark and Nick for being producers as well. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.